D. Wood Jr. He was a rebel who made movies in Hollywood, but outside of the Hollywood filmmaking establishment. He independently produced his own movies, wrote, directed, and sometimes even starred in them. He worked super fast and super cheap, resulting in some of the so-called worst movies ever made. He's done westerns, crime dramas, but we're going to focus on his horror movies. It's Cinemassacre's Ed Wood-a-thon, a two-part retrospective. First on our list is Glen or Glenda from 1953. No, it's not exactly a horror movie, but it's so fucked up you might as well call it one. It was produced by George Weiss with original intentions to make a biopic about Christine Jorgensen, a woman who was originally a man, the first publicly known sex change. Ed Wood was hired to write and direct, but completely changed the whole idea, making it a semi-autobiography about himself and his desire to dress in women's clothes. He stars in the movie under the name Daniel Davis. He was able to cast his idol, horror star Bela Lugosi, whose name is synonymous with Dracula. At this time, unfortunately, he was addicted to morphine and his career was in the gutter, but Ed Wood managed to get him back on the screen. He's even top billed. But his way of utilizing him is totally bizarre, but brilliant at the same time. Basically, he sort of plays a godlike character who narrates what's going on while mixing together test tubes and surrounded by skeletons. So this means that Lugosi is seen and heard throughout a good portion of the film, even though we have no idea what purpose he has there. And all they needed to do was just film him one time sitting in a chair. For that, it was practical and kind of clever. However, the narration he's given makes no sense.
Beware of the big green dragon that sits on your doorstep. Puppy duck tails and big fat snails. Pull the string! Pull the string!
Pull the strings, beware the big green dragon, and speaking in nursery rhymes intercut with stock footage of bison? But Lugosi does his usual fine job delivering these ridiculous and cryptic lines. But the strangest part of all is a 15-minute nightmare scene involving a devil, random people acting like idiots, a woman being whipped on a couch, and very bizarre striptease dances, all cut to reaction shots of Lugosi and Ed Wood. The whole movie has strange use of stock footage, strange use of voiceovers. It begins like a documentary depicting cultural deviance, sort of becomes a horror movie, an experimental art film, an autobio, a bondage movie, and then it ends with a sex change. What the fuck kind of twisted piece of crap is this? But at least it succeeds in telling a story. What Ed Wood made was a very personal and bold movie asking the world to accept those who deviate from the norm. Even though it's a totally disjointed mess, it could easily pass as an art house film. Believe me, in that category, I have seen worse. The rating seems pointless, but from a general standpoint, I give it 1 puppy dog tail out of 5. But for ambition, it gets at least 3. Next up, Bride of the Monster from 1956. This was Ed Wood's first monster movie. It begins with a stormy credit sequence with a scary old house. Classic. Bela Lugosi stars as a mad scientist, Dr. Vornoff, who's experimenting with atomic rays to create an army of mutant men to take over the world. It's as cliché as it gets. It's Lugosi's last speaking role, and he at least has a lot of lines.
I will perfect my own race of people. A race of atomic supermen which will conquer the world.
There's also a moment where he does this weird hypnosis thing with his hands, which is a tribute to White Zombie, which obviously Ed Wood was a fan of. He has a lab assistant named Lobo, played by Swedish wrestler Tor Johnson, who spends the whole time lumbering around, grunting, and taking plenty of abuse from Lugosi. The protagonist and all supporting actors are real boring, but there's the silly cop Kelton, played by Paul Marco, who says, "Yes, sir," constantly.
Yes, sir.
There's 2 particular sets that are kind of interesting. There's a laboratory set, which is extremely cheap by most standards, and there's a dark room in the house which has a crooked picture frame in the background and a staircase leading to nowhere. It resembles the German expressionist classic, The Cabin of Dr. Caligari. But how about the monster? Well, the poster shows Lugosi, making it seem that he's the monster. Also, you can say Lobo's the monster, but then there's the octopus. The doctor keeps it in a large tank, which is actually a lake. You see stock footage of a real octopus underwater, cut to a fake rubber octopus attacking people. First of all, the two shots don't even match at all. And the rubber octopus doesn't even move. The actors are doing all the work. So it's one of the worst monsters ever seen. But let's cut to the chase. There's some intervention from the male and female protagonists. Lobo turns against his master, straps him to the table, turns the ray on him. The doctor mutates into a monster, which basically means he covers his face and acts like he's a monster. He gets into a fight with Lobo, breaking bottles and pushing each other around. Watch the wall shake as Lobo backs into it. Even if it fell down, Ed Wood's the kind of guy who would just roll with it. Lobo backs up into the machinery and then something next to him explodes. The whole house catches fire. The police shoot at Varnoff, who deflects the bullets by making ridiculous faces. Then they roll a boulder and they send him into a lake where he's attacked by his own octopus and then struck by lightning, which causes an atomic explosion. Wow. Overall, it's the lowest grade monster movie ever possible, but it's hilarious, and Lugosi makes it worthwhile. My rating, 2.5 octopuses. Next came the film that Ed Wood is known for, Plan 9 from Outer Space. It has a